Today is a special day because we get to talk about role-playing games, my favourite genre of all time, and we're going to do the top 10 franchises of all time. Now, every franchise on this list I adore. I love all these franchises, and there's so many games within each franchise which are masterpieces in their own right. There is a lot left off though. Some games, because there's only a couple in the franchise, even though they are classics. So I will do maybe a top 10 RPG games of all time, rather than franchises, because there are some honourable mentions which, I held in high regard, and one of them, let's get started, is Planescape Torment, which is considered as one of the best, and I love it. More is amazing. I love this Dungeons & Dragons-esque pen and paper style role-playing game. It's absolutely fantastic, and another one which is great is Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Fantastic games. Minsc is a legend. The stories are fantastic. The gameplay, I prefer turn-based rather than real-time, but it's still fantastic in my opinion. I still love the games. And Baldur's Gate 3 is being produced by Larian Studios, who did Divinity, which I fucking adore. I'm super looking forward to Baldur's Gate 3. But the Baldur's Gate franchise, it didn't quite make it, I'm afraid. And the last honourable mention is Divinity. Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, absolute fantastic. And even Dragon Commander is fucking amazing. So the franchise is cool. It's great. Divinity 2 is probably one of my favourite RPGs of all time. But I don't think the series can quite match the 10 that I have. So without further babbling, let's get in with number 10. So number 10 is Monster Hunter. Now there's so many Monster Hunter games, and I love every single one. From the humble beginnings on the PS2 to now on the PS4 with Monster Hunter World, with its verticality of gameplay and open world kind of setting, and the map where just any monster can come in. It is a huge timeline, and every game in the timeline is just fantastic. You have Free with the underwater combat and the Lagiacrus and the Golden Cadeus, like all the Elder Dragons. Can we talk about the Elder Dragons? You got Latrion, Diamoralis, you got Velkhana, you got Teostra, Kushala Daora. There's so many cool, interesting designs, amazing gameplay with all the different weapons you can have. Hammer main right here. Love my hammer. But each time you pick up a weapon, it's like a different game, which is what I love in RPGs. Replaying it with a different equipment, different weapon, different armor, and it feels like a different game. You swap out your equipment sets to fight the monster itself. So you could say it's more action than RPG, but in my opinion, nah, it's an RPG. You're leveling up, you're constantly getting better, you're constantly getting more materials, constantly getting different armor, different weapons, fighting more monsters, finding new areas. It's a role-playing game, just heavily action-orientated. But Monster Hunter is just an amazing series, which I love. I just adore it, so easily making it onto my list. Next up, Shin Megami Tensei. That's right, this monster hunting kind of game, monster collecting, monster catching, monster using, similar to another game that might be on this list. I adore this one, and I adore it for the combat. You got that JRPG turn-based combat, which is just oh so good. Oh so good. And then with the Persona side of the Shin Megami Tensei universe, you have that social aspect. Increase your courage and intelligence, and increasing your intelligence means you can talk to like Makoto or talk to like another character, Mitsuru, and it's another game where it's easily replayable, which is a big thing for RPGs. They have to be replayable, and Shin Megami Tensei is. The amount of demons you can use each playthrough, the different romance options you can get if you talk about Persona, just the amount in the gameplay and the different endings you can get in some of the Shin Megami Tensei games. Adore the franchise, adore the monsters. Jack Frost is the best. Yeah, Shin Megami Tensei, easily making it on here. Next up, post-apocalyptic Fallout. Holy crap, this is an amazing franchise. Was an amazing franchise until 76, but every other game in it has been fantastic. I started with Free. I know a lot of people don't like Free, but I love Free. I loved Free. The choice in the weapons and everything you can do and the dialogue choices, I just loved everything about Free. And then New Vegas took it up another level. 4 was pretty good, but they kind of dialed back some of the stuff. Kind of like Skyrim, they dialed back a bit of the Speech. Speech mainly, which I loved in New Vegas. You could make the final boss kill himself through speech. That just shows how great Fallout is. You could go full charismatic speech person. If you're a female, you could get Benny, who shoots you in the head at the beginning, go to the casino, meet him, sleep with him, and then kill him in his sleep. And I bet you didn't even know that if you played a guy. But yeah, that's why Fallout is fucking awesome. And the old Fallouts, Fallout 1, Fallout 2, are more mature, more in-depth, and there's more stuff you can do. And the dialogue choices in those as well also affect things. If you're an idiot, some people won't even talk to you. So there's all the classic RPGs of Fallout 1 and 2. Don't dismiss them. They are fantastic as well in their own rights. 76 you can dismiss, but the others, nah. Absolute amazing franchise Fallout is. Next up, Diablo. This is an action role-playing game. Over the head, loot. This, I can't wait for Diablo 4. I'm just going to play the shit out of that. I platinumed Diablo 3. It was just too addictive. Some people don't like it, but when Reaper of Shadows came out, yeah, it was way better. The auction house can go fuck itself. But everything else was absolutely flawless in the game. I loved the combat, I loved the setting, I loved the graphics, I loved the evil atmosphere, I loved Diablo. But come on, Diablo 2 is the king, of course. Diablo 2 is the king and probably one of the best RPGs of all time. And Diablo 3 is also a 10 out of 10 for me personally. Diablo 1's pretty good, but the franchise itself just has to be on this list because many thousands of people got into RPGs through Diablo. So, I love it. Most people love it. Gotta be here. Next up, I'm putting The Witcher here. The Witcher is an amazing franchise. One of the best stories on this is the best story on this entire list. The story in these games are just flawless. Sure, you are not yourself. You're not a player-made character. It's not like Diablo, Fallout, or any of these other games where you can mold your character, which I like more, so I give them over Witcher. But the Witcher character himself, Geralt of Rivia, is such an interesting and intriguing character in himself that you don't really want to play anyone else because he's just so interesting. And although the story is absolutely fantastic, the game world itself is where it is. The quests, the upgrades, you can just be a pure magic user in the game. So it has that role-playing aspect, upgrading weapons, upgrading your skills. So it's an RPG. It's an RPG, it's not just a story game. It's an RPG, and it's easily one of the best of the last 10 years. Easily. 100% making it onto this list. And not just 3, I'm talking about 2 and 1 as well. 1's a bit clunky. Story's amazing, gameplay's a bit clunky, wouldn't recommend. 2 is probably the best. 2's my favourite Witcher game. 100% play 2, because that story is phenomenal. If you think 3 is good, go play 2. But yeah, Witcher franchise, absolutely adore. Next up, Final Fantasy, the JRPG to end all JRPGs. You know, this is on the top of most people's radars for a reason, because it's a goddamn classic. 7 is a beloved game for a reason, because the characters are all interesting, intriguing, the story and Sephiroth and the killing and Cloud and all that shit. It's amazing. The gameplay though, story aside, I'm not the biggest story fan of the Final Fantasy games. I think they're pretty good. I prefer Shin Megami Tensei, but the gameplay is fantastic and the monster designs are fantastic and the character interactions are great. And 7's probably not the best. 10's fucking fantastic. 6 is amazing. 7's really good as well, but there's so many other good ones. You know, there's so many other good ones. I even like 13. So many games to choose from. Humble beginnings. All the games are fantastic. All the games are worth your time. And if Final Fantasy wasn't on this list, there would be riots. So 100% going on the list. Next up, those fuzzy little creatures. Mentioned them before, Pokemon. It's a JRPG, it's got that turn-based combat similar to Final Fantasy. Less depth, but more variety. All these different, like over 900 now that you can capture and train. It's one of my favourite franchises of all time. I know every single one of them, and I've got about like 300 shiny Pokemon because I'm that obsessed with it. It's one of the biggest multimedia selling franchises of all fucking time. It's higher than Mario, it's higher than Star Wars. So if this wasn't on the list, you know, then Pokemon is one of the biggest RPGs in the world. Every game I love. Mainline games, there's so many spin-offs, but we're going to talk about the mainline games, and each one has something to enjoy. Even Let's Go has that Pokemon following and the cool overworld Pokemon encounters, so I love that as well. Sword and Shield people shit on. I love that one as well, because it's in England. England! Anyway, Sword and Shield is also fantastic. My favourite has to be Gen 3, because the Pokemon designs in that, I love. Gardevoir, come on. Blaziken, easily my favourite. I seem to like the anthropomorphic ones. But yeah, love Pokemon, one of my favourite franchises of all time, so it has to make the list. Next up, number 3 is Dark Souls, the Souls franchise. So we're talking Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Sekiro, all those games I'm going to talk about. They literally have made a new genre in gaming called Souls-like. That's how influential this RPG franchise is, so it has to make it onto this goddamn list, because everyone wants to be Dark Souls. Everyone wants to be Dark Souls right now. They're promoting games by saying it's like Dark Souls. So Dark Souls wasn't on here. There's something wrong, and it happens to be one of my favourite franchises of all time. I love every single Souls game. I've played them multiple times, multiple different ways, Soul Level 1 runs, whatever you want. I adore them. The combat is the best on this list, in my opinion. Almost with Monster Hunter, but I'd probably give it to Dark Souls, just because Dark Souls is my bae. But yeah, all the games are fantastic. It has cool story that you piece together yourself throughout world items, which I prefer than people just talking to you. And the combat is just flawless. The builds are amazing. Not quite as much in Sekiro, but in the Souls franchise, the build variety is amazing. Souls, the bosses are challenging yet satisfying when you beat them, so 100% going onto the list. Coming in number 2 is the Legend of Zelda franchise. Probably the franchise that popularized RPGs. And you could say it's more an action-adventure, but it's an action-adventure RPG. You got the open world, do things in any way you want. You constantly upgrade and get different weapons, different items, bombs, and different things to use to help you throughout the worlds. It is an RPG, and it's one of the best RPGs of all time. Ocarina of Time is a fucking masterpiece, but Majora's Mask is a little bit better. I love the time aspect of it. It kind of gives a greater sense of urgency. And then Breath of the Wild is another masterpiece. Just the physics system in that, like you can freeze like a log and smack it low, jump on the log and then start time and you fly off, and it's like, yes. Breath of the Wild is a fucking masterpiece. If you don't have it, go get it. But Zelda, I even love the NES ones, the first one, Link's Awakening, all of them are great. And it's a franchise that, if it's not number 2, has to be number 1. But there's one franchise that tickles my fancy the most, so let's get to number 1. Best RPG franchise of all time, and my favourite, The Elder Scrolls. I adore this, and it's not just the gameplay and the games themselves, it's the lore and the history around everything. This is probably the most lore-rich franchise of all time, in my opinion. Probably the most lore-rich. The amount of substance you can get from just a single book, and some of them are books written by people in the game, so the books that they're writing might not actually be the history that's written. So some of the story and the history could be written by someone in the game. Yeah. So then you have to figure out, is this actually what happened in the history of the world, or is that just this guy's retelling of the history of the world to make him look better? So it has the similarity to real life, where that stuff happens in real life, where people, like the media and stuff, write about things like that. So I'm going on a massive tangent about a book written by Vivek in a single in a single game, and that's why this game franchise is the best of all time. I could talk 10 minutes about a book in the game. So, you got the characters, you got all the deities, you got how the world is created, you got Mundus, you got all the Aedra, the Daedric quests you can do, the amount of freedom you have in each of the games. Morrowind has the whole tribunal, and then the whole Dunmurray kind of class system, and then you got the three houses which are politically trying to get each other. In Skyrim, you got the Imperials and the Stormcloaks trying to fight over certain strategic positions on the map. It's crazy. You got the Thalmor, kind of this evil elven supremacy kind of faction, who are saying that this one divine, one of the 9 divines, is not worthy of being a divine. So they're saying that you cannot worship this god. He's not worthy. And then everyone's angry about that. So it's just stuff like that that makes the game franchise the best game franchise, the best RPG of all time. When I can talk that much about the lore, your character is a created character, so you make him whatever you want. An Argonian battle mage, a Khajiit stealth archer, which probably makes more sense, a Khajiit warrior with a 2-handed axe who also likes throwing fireballs. You can do whatever you want. You can run around with just your fists out and just punch everything to death. You can join different factions. You can do whatever you want. You can kill anyone you want. You can pick anyone's pocket. You can steal people's clothes from them. Yeah, Elder Scrolls, easily the best RPG franchise of all time. Easily. Like, easily. So that is the list, top 10 RPG franchises of all time. Hopefully you had some fun. Let me know in the comments below your favourite RPGs of all time. Is there any on this list that you like? Any that I've missed off? Let me know, and we'll see you again on another video.